Good morning. Warning before. Who's Estonian? Damn it, that's gonna be hard because I've heard I'm too optimistic for Estonia today. I hope it's not true, but we'll check. Now presentation, and it looks much better. So I'm gonna take you to a trip through API protocols, more like overview. And actually, I wonder at which stage you are. I'm gonna check it in a moment. Warm-up time. And warm-up time means we count the participants. So you start, 1. No, I hope that's Estonian sense of humor, I hope. But that's not the point. The real warm-up is I will check if it works. If it doesn't, then I will check it manually. So who have ever heard about REST? And there shouldn't be hands down. OK, GraphQL. OK, SOAP. WebSockets. Webhooks. OK, that's nice warm-up, right? Now, why this presentation? Because actually, that's nice report. You can take a look. It's from last year from Postman, and I called it protocols, but the proper name would be architectural style of API. Why? You will see it in a second. But for simplicity, I will use phrase protocol, just to warn you, but in reality, not every of them is a protocol. So we have 5 of them that have popularity about at least 55%. There is high chance you ever met it, or you will meet it in the future, hopefully, because it's fun. And I thought it's too far. The second slide, that doesn't work, but no worries. Who have ever worked with REST? OK, with GraphQL? OK, with SOAP? I'm sorry for you. With WebSockets? And with Webhooks. And that's probably the last one is that you worked with even a lot, but you just don't realize. OK, so specifications popularity, which is a part of this report as well. Like, majority of them is for REST, but then we have WSDL, which is for SOAP, and we have GraphQL, which is, no surprise, for GraphQL. Now, let's start the journey, and it's still too far. Some obviousness, I will stay here. So, some obviousness. We have methods, right? No? OK. I think that's Estonian energy, so I will try to adjust. Now, we have endpoints to reach the resource. We have status codes, one of the favorite questions for some reason during interviews, and the most annoying, I would say. And the fourth, REST is a pretty well-known and recognized and described standard. But that's not true. Actually, the last one is totally not true. That's not a standard. REST is not a standard. And the others, they apply only for REST, not for any other protocol. But let's start with REST. So just to warm up, you know it quite well. So I'm not going to spend a lot of here. REST, how it is, you probably know very well. So we send a request. We get a response. Usually JSON format, but I'm not going to talk about the structure. I'm going to focus on 3 attributes. Yeah. Bidirectional, so it's request response. Always. We don't stay in connection. It's request. We send the request. We get the response. Then methods are something that defines the behavior. So quick question, what does the post method do? I have nothing to give you, but you have my appreciation. So yeah, actually, post method does whatever developer implements. There is no rule that You cannot delete data with post or rich data with post. Actually, working as a consultant and trainer, I saw products written only using post. Why? I don't know. But it was possible. So it's definitely possible. And I think that's the correct answer for interview. So what does the post method do? Whatever developer implements. And format as a third attribute. So we send JSON and we receive actually whatever. Usually JSON, that's appreciated, but it can be XML, HTML, or any other format. And something that is very specific for REST is building URLs. So we have slices, and then we can just point out to the specific resource. Plus, we have I tried. We have params that can work as a filter, for example. But instead of focusing on what does the post do, I prefer you to focus on those 4 attributes. So if it's idempotent, and I know that's sometimes not obvious, idempotent means you can send the same request without changing the result. That means idempotent, and now you sound smart whenever someone will ask you. And then we have request body, response body. It's possible in every, but usually forget and delete. We don't do it. And then if it's safe, get, yeah, you just like usually push the data, so it can be considered as save on. And then we have status codes, another favorite question for the interviews. But actually, I wonder, have you ever tested 100s? Anyone? And they still ask it. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And 300s? Anyone? And they still ask it. 1 person, yeah. Applause. And I'm not sorry for you. I mean, that's really nice that you have a chance. But 100s and 300s are probably the least popular. We always focus on those 3. But you will see 100 later on. But what I'm always worry about, that not only codes, but we get a message. And those messages are sometimes misleading, because 204 usually when we get no content means we just removed, so there is no content. But it doesn't mean there was no content, so you cannot remove. So it might be misleading. Sometimes those messages, at least for me, are not very straightforward. So codes are just better. What are potholes for REST? If you don't see JSON, usually it's frustrating. Like we expect JSON as a data, but it's not always the case. So that might be an issue, especially if we use a lot of third-party integrations. Then we have clear structure, and changing attribute can easily just break all the contract. Actually, that's why we have contract tests. Anyone doing contract tests? Okay, we have few people. So that's a really good way to validate if on both sides we are still fine. What's the pothole of REST is definitely we got all the data we request. So we request about like user, but we get all the data. So we cannot really specify in most cases what we want to receive. And the last one, favorite one, documentation. And actually, I would say that's not the reason, but that's the proof that it's not standard. It's not standard because nobody standardized it. It wasn't like 20 people in 1999 sitting and thinking, let's standardize it. I mean, maybe they did, I don't know. But they never achieved the agreement. There was never a standardized version of REST. So REST definitely is not a protocol, it's a set of good practices, informal agreements, but it's not a protocol. So whoever see it and whoever worked or whoever works, now just nodding his head, saying, I know it. Unfortunately. I mean, SOAP is not bad. It was created from a different perspective and slightly different reasons. The major difference is we use XMLs and we use very, very proper structure, and that makes us, like we can call it protocol easily. It's protocol. It's described on the other side What can I send, what I cannot, what kind of data, and there's always validation. And getting back to those three attributes, it's again bidirectional. So we send request, we get response. But about methods, actually, if you use, for example, SOAP UI for testing SOAP, you don't even see what is the method. In reality, there is always post sent. It's a post sent to a single URL, always single URL, so we don't have endpoints like in REST. And we define in XML what we want to do, like add data, edit data, or receive data. And then formats are XML here. And I like the suggestion of working with XML from Postman. The best suggestion of working with XML from Postman is immediately parse it to JSON and then check. Good suggestion, and actually it works somehow. Now, what are pros and cons? And I know I sound like the hater, but maybe I spent too much with SOAP at some point. What are pros and cons? So cons are definitely, comparing to other protocols, is complexity. It's not that straightforward as we know working with REST, for example. Then we have tooling, and I don't know any other like really nice tool than SOAP UI to work with. Actually, Postman supports now all the protocols, almost every, like WebSockets, gRPC, GraphQL, but not SOAP. And that's probably because SOAP is slowly dying, and the percentage of usage in companies is just moving down. I don't think it will die soon, because there are a lot of like big financial institutions, for example, who use it. And you just cannot change it in a week. So there won't be a case it will die. But every new architecture usually avoid it. What are pros? Well, definitely comparing to REST, it's standardization. You have it standardized. You know what to do. You don't have to do a lot of reverse engineering with open network and sniffing what's going on. No, you can just check it from the standard. Market supply, not many people do it. So if you find a company that's looking for someone with SOAP, it's good. Like, that's a strong point in CV. I was really trying to find pros, just appreciate. And the third one, it's very educatory, because we have a lot of to do. We have namespaces there, we have the whole structure, and the structure you will see in a second. So what are my hints for testing? Actually, I was talking about structure. So this is standardized structure. We have message as a whole, but then we have envelope, and eventually header, then body, and in body we can have elements, and if something goes wrong, we get a fault. And that's also something that differs a lot, because in most cases, we can read the type of error from SOAP fault. So it's as a message. It's not a status code that gives us a lot of information. Then we have load or any performance testing, because it's huge amount of data. You could see the comparison, how it could look like in REST and how it looks like in SOAP. So there is significant difference. And load testing is always nice for SOAP. And the third one is message structure. So because it's super structured, and we have this, it's still simplified, this ping box. But we should do some message verification and the structure, how it exactly looks like. Good thing, we have WSDL that we can always refer to. So it must exist. So we can call SOAP a protocol. And actually, in SOAP, the last letter means protocol. And it's not just the phrase. It means like we really have a protocol. Now, it's still too far. No. Potholes. What are the potholes for SOAP? Martin Lawrence, that's I know you cannot agree, but this is one of my favorite memes. So SOAP usually is just take something, add a lot of different other stuff, and send it. And then wait for a lot of different stuff to unparse it and check the real content. So yeah, that's the major issue. In reality, we always use web methods. So whenever we use SOAP, there is a web method. It's post, always post, that is sent. And then, oh yeah, that could be the comparison of how requesting for Apple stock price looks like in SOAP and in REST. So we have this proper structure, but eventually for extracting data is really annoying. But it's safe, and at least it's documented for sure. GraphQL. And GraphQL, I think that's my favorite one. That's not the newest one, surprisingly. There are newer one, but it's getting popularity from like year after year, and it's pretty linear since 2015. So I think it will be like quite popular in the following years, even more. What's the major difference? The major difference here is we have this black dot, black something, black circle. That is a server, usually Apollo server, that participate in communication with the client, and then the client just doesn't care. That's single endpoint. But this server communicates usually with other microservices, just to pull the data, store data, and so on. Usually REST. So usually we have REST there. What's the problem? Someone has to maintain it. Someone has to maintain this server. And how looks like the structure? It's query language. GraphQL means graph query language. It's not graphical. It means graph, so like math, like we have graphs. And it looks very similar to, I would say it's quite similar to JSON, but once you start working it looks much more like SQL, because you can add a lot of like filters, sorting, and so on. And the response, as you see, gets back as JSON. So our three attributes, it's bidirectional, request response, again, and we have one more thing, persistent connection. But I'm gonna get back to it a little bit later. Then we have methods. We have post, the same as in SOAP. And we have single URL or single endpoint, always, the same as in SOAP. Or we have WebSocket, and I'm gonna get back to this later. And what about formats? We have query format, special dedicated format for requesting, and then we have response that is always JSON. And is it standard? Yeah, it is, because there is always validation of the structure as well. So same as SOAP, we can easily call it a standard. GraphQL, we can call it a standard. Now, what is it all about? As we have methods in REST, in GraphQL we have operations, query, mutations, and subscriptions. Query and mutations, you can, I could say mutations mean you can mutate the data, and that explains everything. Saying and rephrasing it, mutations means I can edit, remove, manipulate all the data, and query is more like get, so I just receive data. And then we have subscriptions, and I'm going to get back to this a little bit later. What about errors then? So usually, we still don't have error codes. We have dedicated built-in errors, and we receive it as a response. We can read from the response, and that's actually big pain in the something, like head, mostly head or back. Whenever we receive response, there is a high probability, it's 200, but it's an error. So this is not meme, that's true. In many cases, whenever you send something that should return an error, you get 200. And actually, thinking widely, it makes kind of sense, because 200 means the request was successful. The request was successful, just the response was like not really fine. But you can find it in body, not in status code. Few more requests, how it could look like. Damn, I had a nice Estonian name for this presentation, but I forgot. What's the Estonian version of Henry? I think it started with I. Don't remember. But getting back to presentation. So we have queries, and what's important, we exactly define what we want to receive. And that's major difference comparing to REST. Whenever I want to receive the data, I don't get everything. I get just the things that I define I want to receive. So in some cases, I can receive just 1 or 2 fields only. And then we have mutations that you can see the example below. But the problem here is you can make a lot of internal queries. So in this case, we have get robots. And from those robots, we want to get models. But from every model, we want to get a list of robots. And from every robot, we want to get a list of models. Why it's possible? Because we have graphs. So every model is assigned to a robot, in this case. And I can say, give me this, and then back, and then this. And there's actually one of the nice cases to test if we didn't build too much complexity in our query, because it can quite easily kill the server. And it's fun, like we like to break things, and you cannot do nothing bigger than just breaking the server itself. And there is many cases that there is no protection against too high complexity. What are my hints here? So errors, as you have seen, status codes are not the proper way to test it. I mean, it's good to at least receive 500 that something went wrong, but then the exact message you can find in response. Queries and mutations, my message here, it's not hard. It's really intuitive. So even if you didn't work, especially if you know SQL, that's very straightforward. Query complexity that mentioned just before, that's first thing I'm always trying to test. If there is any protection against, just nesting a lot of things, and then we have like complexity, few billions of trillions, and that's the amount of data we would like to receive. So it either gives us a response that's too much, be careful, or we'll break the server. And probably the most useful thing, query interfaces. So we have a lot of tools that supports us with testing. We have GraphQL Playground, Apollo Sandbox, GraphQL. What that gives us, we can load the whole schema, and instead of just writing with your fingers, we can check the boxes. Give me name, second name, height, and sort it by age. Super simple. And there is a nice API I like to use. It's called Poke API, about Pokemons. Huge data, like a lot of everything. I didn't know there is so much about Pokemons. And with like every month, oh, actually maybe every year, I use it for trainings. There is more and more and more Pokemons. Out of the context, out of the contest, how do you think, what is the current number of Pokemons around the globe? Wow, you are so close. Not 100, but 1,000, and not 30, but 25. 1,025, so you are very close. So a lot, actually a lot, and some of them are nice. Some of them are nice. I don't know if it's good to talk about Pokemons here, but why not? Like that's my stage eventually. But yeah, that's getting back. That's really nice API, and it's free and it's big to test GraphQL. There is also REST version, so you can easily compare REST versus GraphQL. What are the potholes then? The biggest problem is we have a lot of codes that can be redundant. So we just want to get too much data. So, and that's probably something that we don't care that much, because if we work mostly with REST, we don't define what we want to receive exactly. We don't define fields. So the practice is give me all fields, and then I get like a response like this instead of this. Then this circle that you have seen on the first slide, there must be someone to maintain it, and eventually microservices communicate between each other with REST protocol. And errors, that's another meme, really nice. So we have 200. 200, it's good, almost. So error codes always comes in response. Now WebSockets. And WebSockets are quite different, and probably if you work with the data that needs to be updated live very frequently, so that could be betting industry, so live betting, or live scores, or live currencies rate, or cryptocurrencies, there is like 90% chance that there is a WebSocket underneath. Now, what's the difference between this and those three before? So you see 100 here. That's maybe the first time you see 100 in real life. 100 means only I switch the protocol from REST to WebSocket, and that's end of 100. 101 to be precise. But it works like this. So we send a request, hey, I want to stay in connection. We have a handshake, and then we stay in connection. And all the communication is bidirectional as before, but it's persisted. So we can asynchronously send data and receive data. And for those who want to find the real usage in our world, the difference between Selenium and Playwright is Selenium uses REST and Playwright uses WebSockets. That's probably something closer to our world. Then we have methods. And actually, methods, we can say we just have get to set the connection. And then we have all the messages sent asynchronously. So it's just one message to persist the connection, and then we exchange data. And format, and actually that's full freestyle, because we can send UTF, it can be JSON, even, to be readable, but we can send just binary payload. And on the right side, you have a binary payload that must be decoded on client or server side. What are the pros? What are the cons of that usage? So surely pros is we cut off the amount of message, because it's not parsed to be readable. It's just pure binary. What are the cons? It must be decoded eventually, because it's not fully readable for anyone. Now, my hints for testing. The case with automation and WebSockets is I actually never recommend it to be fully automated. That's nice to support as a testing part, so semi-automation. And the second thing, there are no tools. At least I don't know tools other than just pure coding to test WebSockets. So here is like very, very simple Python script. But if you want to use Postman, for example, you can automate their everything, GraphQL, SOAP, REST, but you cannot automate WebSockets. The second thing is connectivity, because we persist connection. That's really a nice part of testing. So timeouts, breaking the connection, and then reconnecting again. So everything connected with connectivity, that's something worth to check. And just don't be afraid, it's not a rocket science. It's just different way. It's not request response, as we usually consider. It's persistent connection. What are the potholes? So if you have never worked and you first see WebSockets, that can be more like this, but you can get experts in one night usually, because you are experts. So, and I don't know why someone is smiling and laughing. Everyone is expert here. You probably need 1-2 days to get some knowledge and then pretend you are an expert. So yeah, I will sound American now. Fake it till you make it. 2 nights, more than enough. And pothole that I see from the architectural point of view, people don't want to use WebSocket for any sake, even if it's a lot of data to be exchanged, like I mentioned, live currencies. So what is better, just persist one connection or send every second few tens of requests to the server and get the response instead of just keeping one connection? So that's more architectural. That's not probably related to testing, but that's one of the biggest problems, that we try to avoid WebSockets for any sake. And I promise to get back to subscriptions, and the reason is because behind we have just WebSockets. So subscriptions means I subscribe to some event, so I want to get the notification once someone buy my product, and then I have WebSocket underneath. Webhooks, which is marked here as -1, And the reason is it's very, very far from protocols. I don't know if API architectural style is even correct name, but you will see in a second. So with webhooks, I think most of you either worked or faced. Who of you get notification once you get a message? No one. Sure. We don't chat. We don't chat. We are professionals. We don't chat being on the conference. But what about webhooks? So usually we subscribe to the specific events, and then whenever something happens, we get a notification. So for example, you get a new message, or you get an update. There is some result change. So for example, Real just scored a goal against Borussia. Eventually, you can send a request to the server with confirmation that, hey, I received the notification. But it's not common practice. So you can do it, but usually the server just sends a notification and forgets. So here is an internal joke. One direction. Unfortunately, they don't have a song or a vinyl with send and forget. That would be nice. But maybe soon. Maybe they will use my suggestion, watching presentation about APIs. Who knows? So it's one direction, just sending, notification, and then forget. Then we have methods. Actually, what? There are no methods. I just subscribe, and then it sends me notification, like push notification. That's the proper name for mobile. And then we have format. It's either JSON or XML mostly, just to easily parse it. So what are my testing hints? Just be careful. Like, nothing really more. And probably you have seen like tweets or messages. Someone additionally send a lot of notifications to production instead of dev. That usually it's about webhooks. It's fun, but maybe not that much. So every year, actually almost every month, we have situation like this. Just the scale is different. If there's 100 people, if that's 10 million people receiving accidental notification with test, or as we had last year in Poland, try to repeat. That's bigger problem. So what are the potholes here? We just can send a lot of data, like bunch of data. We send to everyone who subscribed to this specific event, and the result could be like you have seen. There was actually accident, but on the other hand, the scale really matters. So if I mentioned Real scored the goal against Borussia, you want to send a notification to everyone who subscribed, and that was probably a lot of people. I think 600 of millions people just watched the game. So probably like maybe 10% of them subscribe to the live events. Then API comparing to webhooks. API is just I order and I receive. In webhook is just take it and I don't care. And the result is you can wait forever because there is no confirmation that the webhook was received. So that might be quite problematic. So what's next? What's next after this presentation? Actually, this presentation is just to give you some impulse to elaborate a little bit more on your side, to see the landscape of what's currently popular on the market, but also to get some fun and to maybe just do it after hours or in a different time, maybe later, just to explore it on your own because it's fun. And actually, who knows William Edward Deming? Like, I mean, now I realized this question sounds like I'm checking your age, because that's the guy who was like mostly active in early 80s. So sorry for that, not intentional, just realized. But William Edward Deming was like, we can call him guru of quality. I'm not afraid of telling that. It was more industrial one. So you may know Deming cycle, which is actually not true because it was not invented by Deming, but who cares? It's called Deming cycle, plan, do, check out, just to for continuous improvement of things. And Deming also created 14 principles of quality. So he was kind of guru of quality, actually one of the first. Maybe not in the context we are talking nowadays, but many of them are still in place. And actually, that's probably still not true, but Deming said once that quality issues and problem with waste in 90% is caused by management. I don't know if you agree, but in many companies, that might be very, very close to the truth. So that's the end. You can find me here. If you are interested, you can ask questions if you are interested afterward. And from my side, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dawid. So we have 3 minutes for questions. Make good use of it. Anyone? I'm feeling that we get to use the question assurance trick. Well, you saved them. Very good question. It's on. Yeah.
So maybe more of a remark. Are you sure that Postman doesn't support WebSockets?
It supports WebSockets,
okay,
but it doesn't support automation. So you can manually test WebSockets quite easily. There is a dedicated tab, but you cannot automate it.
Gotcha.
So the point was about semi-automation or automation. So you can easily test it, and it's a long time there already. Before GraphQL, before gRPC, there was WebSockets already, but it didn't move toward automation. So that's the major issue. So manually, no problem, but with automation, there is an issue.
Okay, thanks.
Any more? There's one more.
Thank you. Can you talk a bit about gRPC? Like how popular it is, it's catching on?
I like it.
I like it too.
But that's not the answer. So gRPC is pretty fine. It's an extension of RPC created by Google. I think around the time GraphQL was created. GraphQL was created by, at that time, Facebook, now Meta, and gRPC by Google. Looks like nice competition, surprisingly around the same year. Guess why? So gRPC is definitely much more low level. It's not like request response. We call the instruction with methods. So yeah, I would need like probably 5 to 10 minutes to explain in details. It's again very different than we know from now. It's request response, but it's procedural language. That's the proper name. And it's worth to check, actually. It's not that popular, but for example, in embedded world, I spend a lot of time working with embedded, with IoT, with cameras for cats, and gRPC was quite popular in that area. But yeah, you have one more. Thank you very much to check. You are here for inspiration and for coffee, good food, and party, but for inspiration mostly. So just take it.
Thank you again, Dawid. So here is a little token of appreciation from us.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you're almost like a resident speaker now. Yeah.